この世の全てを手に入れた男、海賊王ゴールド・ロジャー。彼の死に際に放った一言は人々を海へ駆り立てた。
俺の財宝か？欲しけりゃくれてやる。探せ、この世の全てをそこに置いてきた。
This is how you start a story.
12 years ago, a nine-tailed fox suddenly appeared.
This is how you start a story.
Nobody could ever imagine that in just 3 years, it would become the terror that would kill us all.
We're here to save the world.
Oh, so basically we're superheroes.
That's cool.
This is just tough to watch. Today we're diving into Shinichirō Watanabe's latest anime called Lazarus. An anime that, quite frankly, I was very excited for because it's made by the same creator behind the series Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo, animes that I think are pinnacle to anime culture to this day. But after watching 5 episodes, I can confidently say this anime is a huge disappointment. It's kind of boring and at times very soulless. Why is this the case? Honestly, it's a show with not the best of hooks. It's got really borderline artificial intelligence made dialogue, and I think it prioritizes style and the aesthetic over real substance in a story. In this video, I'm just going to discuss fundamental storytelling and screenwriting issues that this anime has that I think are the main reason why it just doesn't succeed on paper or in execution. Let's start with the hook. Let's compare the hook of Lazarus to a hook of a hit show like One Piece. In One Piece, we begin with a legend that is Goldie Roger, a greater-than-life character who is the staple achievement and goal in this show, the king of the pirates who left behind the greatest treasure known to mankind, known as the One Piece. His execution and the announcement of the One Piece trigger the Great Pirate Era, and it makes everyone go batshit crazy wondering what it is and where it is. The hook's brilliant because it creates this world-defining event with clear motivations, it establishes a legend that frames the adventure, and it gives us a mystery that most characters in the setting idealize to pursue or want to resolve. Now let's compare this to Lazarus. Within the first 5 minutes, we learn about this main big bad, I guess, called Dr. Skinner. Dr. Skinner is this well-renowned scientist who created a miracle drug called Hapna. Hapna can destroy all pain or discomfort in the body, and it was known as the miracle drug. And everyone on Earth, or whatever planet Lazarus is placed on, has taken it. It was known as the best invention of all time, and it destroyed all misery and depression in the world. Right after this introduction of who Dr. Skinner is, we are immediately told that he actually created poison. And in 3 years, the drug mutates in the body of the receiver, and it will kill the person who has taken it. And he is the only person in the world with the antidote to the drug, and he is hiding somewhere with it. Whoever finds it can potentially save the world. That is essentially the hook in a nutshell. Now, this hook does create a world-defining event. It does establish this greater legend or large figure that frames the adventure. And just like One Piece, it does give us a mystery. However, in the same 3 bullet points I mentioned earlier, what this doesn't do is it doesn't give us a clear motivation, and most characters in the world of Lazarus seem unbothered by Skinner and his announcement. Also, the legend frames the adventure, but one without any real stakes, as the world seems really uninvolved in said legend and whatever's going on at play. And finally, it's a mystery, yes, but most of the characters don't want to pursue it or resolve it like almost every pirate does in One Piece. As you can see, there's like a common red thread behind the 3 howevers I just mentioned, and I think it's this sense of lack of care, or more importantly, detachment from the characters in Lazarus. No one seems to really care the world's ending. Everyone seems like they're just going by their day like it's another Tuesday in a world that's supposed to be apocalyptic. I don't get it. Not to mention the exposition that enlightens us on this mystery right after we learn about who Dr. Skinner is kind of sudden. It just feels out of left field and rush. Seconds into the episode, we learned a lot behind, this miracle drug. And the reason why I feel like it's too much is because compare this to something like One Piece. Imagine if after we learn about the legend that is Goldie Roger, we immediately learn that it's at Raftel and that, his pirate crew laughed when they got there. And we even learned about a little bit of Joy Boy. We learned the name Joy Boy. It just seems like okay, I got to know who Goldie Roger was as this mysterious figure. Why am I already learning so much more about it and learning about the hook behind the One Piece? Or in this case, why am I already learning about this hook behind Haka? Seems a little out of nowhere. It just kind of takes the wins out of the sails of a character who's supposed to be propped up to be, once again, mysterious and a legend. I think when you combine this issue of rushed exposition and disconnected characters, you get, I think, arguably one of the most annoying pillars of why this show doesn't work, and that's false urgency in this show. The show demands that we invest our time and emotion and care into this, global crises when we have nothing really to latch onto quite yet. We haven't had time to form attachments, learn about these characters, learn about the world. To me, they just feels like strangers still. It's like, imagine if, again, Naruto, in the first couple minutes, or maybe after the first episode, we learn that someone has controlled all the other tailed beast and is trying to take over the world, aka Toby, aka Madara. If we learn that they're trying to, create something to end the world or destroy or take it over, I don't care, because I don't know who these ninjas are. I don't know anything about the world of Naruto. I don't care about the village. I don't care about any of the villages, any of the characters. So if Madara and, Toby want to do this, okay, who cares? It doesn't bother me. As one reviewer of Lazarus put it, the anime has an incredible potential for an engaging core premise, but the show struggles with execution because there's no foundation for the emotional weight it's trying to convey. And I think that perfectly puts it. There really is no emotional weight in anything. Not to mention, if the urgency and emotional impact were a little bit more thought out, you would see more interesting characters. But in reality, Lazarus has some of the most lifeless characters I've ever seen in a shonen anime, or anime in general, really. I don't like Alex Gilberto. I think he's kind of an annoying and extremely underdeveloped character. He presents himself as this cool, aloof, laid-back character, but this trait feels hollow without any characterization or really any complex development behind his character. It feels like they tried to recreate Spiegel from Cowboy Bebop, but they just focused on, everyone likes Spike because he smoked cigarettes and he was always doing cool poses and he could fight really well and he had, this cool demeanor. Forgetting that Spike was also a complex character who, the more we learned about him and his past with Vicious, the more we got engaged, the more we fell in love with the character. I don't think if Spike ever had that background or, had any of the traits that we've seen episode by episode in his dialogue and his relationships, we wouldn't feel the same way about Spike that we do now, where kids in high school and college probably have a poster of him or a tattoo of him with the quote, "See you Space Cowboy" somewhere on their body. Unlike Spike from Cowboy Bebop, whose detached demeanor stemmed from his complex history and worldview, Axel's coolness exists merely as a surface level trait. One IGN reviewer criticized how the lead characters, including Axel, act too unbothered and invulnerable to the dangers they face, highlighting this disconnect between the apocalyptic stakes and the characters' emotional reactions. Axel never seems shocked, thrown off, or remotely human in circumstances where anyone would show some sign of relatable human emotion. And the other team members don't really seem that much better. They all seem to have the same common issue. As one Anime News Network reviewer noted, I could name the other main characters aside from Axel, which is good, but I'll be damned if I could tell you anything meaningful or interesting about them. And it's true. They seem just as bad, if not worse, having cheesy one-liners, lack of clear motivations when taking actions, and again, like everyone in the universe, a lack of emotion in stressful settings. And I think a big issue of why the characters kind of suck is I think another huge writing flaw in Lazarus is that it prioritizes plot mechanics over character development. This show seems more interested in the high concept premise that it's creating instead of trying to create compelling characters to navigate said premise. Screen Note noted in the review of the show that the team dynamic doesn't gel well together, and the story suffers from it. And while the central plot revolves around the mystery of where Dr. Skinner is, the first 5 episodes make almost no real headway into discovering what on earth is going on. When a story focuses purely on plot without developing its characters, audiences like me struggle to invest emotionally in the narrative. And this creates a viewing experience that might be intellectually interested, but emotionally hollow. This is why shows like Naruto spend so much time developing the Konoha 11. This is why shows like One Piece develop side characters on every island. And that's why you have shows like JJK that focus so much on the backstory and the traits of each sorcerer you met. To make matters so much worse, I think that, yes, the hook isn't the best, the plot suffers, and the characters are hollow, but this isn't the biggest issue. The biggest issue, and the reason why I started writing a review for this show and this whole YouTube video, is it's really, really shitty dialogue.
Hold up! Why am I dressed like a girl?
For insurance, we have no idea what type of woman this guy is into.
The dialogue in Lazarus feels extremely inauthentic. Like, at times it feels like it was written by ChatGPT, if I'm being quite honest. Characters in the show don't speak like real people do. They kind of speak only to serve the plot, and not even well. The issues with the dialogue is that, like I said, it's so flat where it just creates several issues. Where exposition-heavy conversations that exist solely to explain the world don't have any other context, they just do that. A lack of distinct voices appear between many characters. There's no subtext or deeper meaning in any of the conversations had in the show. And there's an absence of natural reactions to extreme situations, which I can't stand personally. When characters are facing a literal apocalypse, but respond with detached one-liners like, "No way, you must be joking," or, you know what they say, curiosity kills a cat, or,
As long as I have this on me, I feel invincible.
I know anime can be cheesy, but this really takes the cake. These detached one-liners create this cognitive dissonance that destroys the ability of a viewer or someone like myself to connect to the story emotionally. I never feel like I'm invested in the story when each character's dialogue doesn't even show any sense of connection. It feels that many times that the script was made by a chatbot without any human interaction or any edits. General lines that lack any sense of in-between line metaphors, analogies, characterization techniques, or even symbolism. Not to mention, the shitty dialogue creates unfocused narrative structure as well. Episode 3 particularly demonstrates a lot of Lazarus' structural problems. The narrative jump between locations and scenes without clear purpose, including action sequences that have no narrative justification. One reviewer even said, "It's like the team producing Lazarus just shrugged their shoulders and tossed in whatever random scenes they could to come up with, regardless of whether they can make any sense between one scene to another." The show introduces potentially interesting themes about marginalization and justice, but explores them only superficially. Characters function more as stand-ins for different perspectives and backgrounds than they are generally fleshed out figures for the story that they revolve around. Listen, when I was watching episode 3, I took a lot of notes. I'm gonna go find them right now. In episode 3, the character Doug mentions that he knows a possible lead to find Dr. Skinner, which is really convenient because so far in the first 2 episodes, he doesn't mention this. And it seems like he's been on this task force before Axel was. So I don't know why all of a sudden now he thinks of this lead, but whatever. He mentions the lead is this guy named Claude, who one time did research with Dr. Skinner and was Doug's mentor when he was a student. Him and Axel travel together to, I'm assuming, the lab where he used to work with the mentor, Claude. When they get to the lab, in a matter of seconds, we don't even see the exchange or the interaction, the dialogue. Axel just asks Doug what's going on, and Doug says, "Turns out he's not here. There's a rumor that he's homeless now." We didn't even see them talk to a single human being in the lab, but sure, whatever. As soon as he says this, Axel says, "I think I know where he might be. I think I can help you find him," which is, what? And then the show pans over to what's called the homeless area. Listen, I understand there's like homeless camps and areas where a lot of homeless frequent, but the fact that Axel just knew that the man would be there is kind of crazy, and the fact that it's just called the homeless area, I feel like it's so just like ChatGPT coded, but whatever, they go to the homeless area. What's crazy is that once they get to the homeless area and they talk to this person called, I believe, Jill, this transgender woman, Doug mentions that he was told that Claude was here, even though that's not the case. Axel said he thinks he is here. So it seems like they already lost continuity in dialogue between these two characters. Jill, who is in charge of the homeless camp here, explains that there are people here who don't want their past dug up. And that totally makes sense, and I understand where she's coming from. I think if you're homeless, especially in this apocalyptic world, that seems very unfair. you'd probably just want to die in peace and don't want your old past, poking and finding out where you've been. Because of her mentioning this, it prompts Doug to be a little more human for the first time in the show and mention his backstory and why he really needs to see Claude despite him being a potential lead for Dr. Skinner. He mentions this wild backstory, and I say wild because it just kind of comes out of nowhere. He mentions this backstory of how when Doug was a student, he was oppressed, or more so just discriminated by another student who claimed that there would never be a black Einstein. So, racism. Doug lost his cool and punched the kid, and he was expelled from the school, and the only person that really kind of stood up for him was his mentor, Claude. It's a cool idea that they're already kind of leaning into this idea of, systematic racism and something like private institutions that are, education. But at the same time, it kind of just comes out of nowhere from someone, aka Doug, I don't know anything about yet. It just feels like I don't even know, your personality, and now I'm suddenly supposed to care about this wild backstory of how racism was done onto you. It feels kind of like you're just a standing character for racism. Because of this conversation, and because Doug mentions why he really wants to see his mentor, Jill just gives up and says, you know what, I'll take you to him. What's crazy is when Doug sees his mentor, Claude, there's no conversation about the time that he was racially discriminated against. There's no conversation about systematic racism. It's a very bland whatever conversation. And Doug emphasizes to Jill in their conversation that he really wants to thank Claude because he never got to as a student. And when Doug does thank Claude, it's completely lifeless and lasts 10 seconds. It's the end of their conversation where he says, I really want to thank you for standing up for me. Not even that. He says, I want to thank you for standing up for me. And then he walks away. That's all he says. Claude doesn't even respond. They don't even have a conversation about what he's thanking him for. It just seems so you really want to thank him, but then you just wasted 3 seconds on it? You guys haven't even had a proper conversation around what happened back then. Am I supposed to care? Is it supposed to make me feel something? Because it's not. It just feels like you're just doing this blanket slate of this topic that is very real and applicable to the real world, but you're not giving it any depth to chew on. It's like if Fishman Island in One Piece that tackle the idea of racism through the lens of Fishman, when they brought up how Horty Jones is the product of said racism from the humans onto the fishmen, imagine if that was just done glazed over. Let's say Jinbei, when he apologized to Nami, just said, hey Nami, I've been meaning to tell you, I really apologize for our long. That's it? You're just gonna walk away? That's the end of the conversation? Drill into that. Make it real. Make it human. It's not human at all. I think the last issue is why episodes like episode 3 and 4, 5, 1, 2, and probably the rest of the show, because I'm not continuing this garbage, is I think they prioritize style over substance. This show is really, really, really beautiful at moments where you see the landscape and the environment drawn out. And the music is amazing too. There's chase scenes where it feels adrenaline pumped, and you can tell that the choreography behind the fights and chases is by the same guy who worked on John Wick. His name is Chad Stahelski. Great job. The art direction, all that's beautiful. But I think they prioritize that over the actual plot, because there's never a moment where it's clear what's happening. Yes, I enjoy what I'm looking at on my TV screen, but when I really have to reflect on it, I don't know what I watched. In the moment, there's nothing wrong with watching Lazarus. Anybody who's watching Lazarus at home with a friend or a loved one or whatever is gonna think this is really cool. But when the episode ends and you have to really reflect on what happened, what actually happened, you realize, is this a story or just a mess of dialogue and characters? Because there is no good story here being told yet. So I know I've been ranting for a while, so I think it's important that with my criticism that I mentioned what I think could be done if Lazarus were to come back up again as a remake, I guess, or if the same creators behind this, Mappa and Watanabe, want to make another anime, what they can do in order to make this work, because this clearly isn't working. And those lessons are, you need to establish characters before any crisis. You can't have the audience care about a character that they clearly have no idea who they are or the setting that they live in, and throw a problem in that world expecting them to care about the problem as well. You gotta make traits that serve characterization. Cool character traits should emerge from authentic psychology, not exist merely for style. You gotta develop natural dialogue. Characters should speak real, like real people do, with dialect, distinct voices, perspectives, with real complex nature in their voice and their stories. You gotta balance style and substance, man. Visual flair and action can't compensate for weak character development and plot lines. And last but not least, certainly actually not least, I think this is the most important one, you gotta earn your stakes. World-ending threats feel hollow without personal emotional investment. You need to have an attachment if you're gonna throw in this wrench of pressure every episode, which so far feels non-existent in Lazarus. So that's gonna be it for me. I feel like Lazarus is just one of those examples of a show that on paper looked like it had good direction. It looked like it was gonna be great, but it seemed like either to me they rushed creating the script or they rushed creating the plot, the characters, because the show outside the aesthetics, outside the art, the music, and the fight scenes, the choreography, it falls flat. It's not watchable for me, at least. I'm very bored, confused, and at times just very indifferent to everything going on in the world of Lazarus. I don't think I'm gonna continue this show. Let me know in the comments what you think. Do you think Lazarus is a cool project that I'm, not shitting on with any right merit? Do you think it's better than Cowboy Bebop? Do you think it has something that I'm not seeing? I would like to know and discuss in the comments about that. But until next time, please like the video, subscribe if you like the content. This has been Simon from Panic Brothers, and I hope you guys all have a great, blessed day. Bye.